All right, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, citizens of YouTube. This is Pastor Dowd. All right. In this country, and mind you, what I'm getting ready to speak to you about here this morning is painfully truthful. And this is the type of talk, straight talk, real talk, that people in this country just simply don't want to hear. See, we live in a country where the whole nation is a nation of hypocrites. And the one thing I've learned as an adult in this country is that people, they don't love truth like you think they do. And anytime you start speaking it, you become a personal enemy of anyone who you speak the truth against, especially when you call people on their hypocrisy. For some reason in this country, Americans have a love affair with two types of sicknesses. Number one, while being extremely religious, they're really truly not in function. And number two, you can talk about everything in the world in this country, but do not talk about the transatlantic slave trade. I'm serious. I'm saying all that because in this country right here, I'm sure that all of us are familiar. Now, remind you, according to, and many of you who know me, you know how truthful I am. Some of you just don't know me. You've been here for a little short period of time. You really truly don't know the type of man I am. You watched a couple of videos. You like what I said. You said, that's pretty good. I like the way this man talks right here. Some of you, if you don't know, I'm a veteran, United States military, a paratrooper of 10 years. So not only am I a U.S. Army paratrooper, but also air assault as well, qualified. I have a small community, and I'm in charge of many communities, mostly in the South. Here in America. And this is the Constitution of the United States of America, which some of you believe that you love. You think you do. I'm going to discuss with you some cold hard facts without being biased. I'm just going to speak truth to power. I'm going to speak some straightforward, honest, historical facts about this country. I have even what you call the Citizens Rule Book. I also keep the Declaration of Independence on my desk, and I read them all equally. Matter of fact, I probably read this one right here more than any other, which is evidence because you can tell how hard I've been thumping the pages. I even got paint spilt on the middle of the pages of this one. I noticed that here in America, that depending on where you grew up, you hear a certain portion about history. Growing up in the American school system, I heard about the Holocaust. I went to schools that consisted of, I don't know, let's say if we had 800 people in the schools, there was probably no more than 20 what you would call African Americans. That's what the designation been today in the school system. I never heard anything about transatlantic slave trade. I never heard anything about Emmett Till, Harriet Tubman. I never heard about Thurgood Marshall. I never heard about Marcus Garvey. I could go on and on naming historical facts. In other words, I never heard about black history in this country. The only thing I heard about black history was every once in a while I would see a picture of Martin Luther King flash up on the screen. I didn't even hear about Rosa Parks. I didn't hear about any of these. I did hear about Thomas Jefferson, George Washington. They said that George Washington chopped down a cherry tree too. I heard about Christopher Columbus. And they told me in the history of this country, that Christopher Columbus discovered America. Only come to find out I had another train wreck. Once I become an adult and I started doing my own studies, and this didn't happen until I was in my 20s. And until I started doing my own independent studies and research, I found out that Christopher Columbus never even stepped foot on this continent up here called America. Yet the lie is still continuing to be exasperated, still being preached and teached and taught. I didn't know about the KKK because I grew up here in Tennessee. I heard about it. Didn't know what their beef was, but I heard about it. It didn't make any sense to me, and it still does not make any sense to me today, especially now that I'm informed of the truth. See, I'm not like a lot of people who want to play mental gymnastics, who don't want to hear the truth of history. You don't want to hear it. All you want to do is stick your head in the ground and act like nothing ever happened, and you don't care about other people's experiences and their plights. Growing up, I dated a few white girls. And I can remember two times. One time I had a shotgun right here put at my face. The other time I had a pistol put at my face. And it was kind of ironic because neither time was I afraid. As a matter of fact, more than anything, I was angry as I don't know what. Now, given that I'm an adult now, and I was a child, probably no more than maybe 14, 15 years old then, could have been 16, 17. I can't remember. I'm not good with time and stuff. But given now that I'm adult and I'm a highly trained adult, if somebody was to draw a shotgun and put one in my face again, or a pistol, and you didn't use it, I promise you I will take it from you and I will use it on you. Because you're dealing with a whole different character man now. This is not a little boy anymore. This is grown man. And this is grown man who has been not only very well trained, but continue his education in self-defense. So I come to find out a lot of realities. I went into the military. All right, I went into the military. I didn't sense too much discrimination whatsoever at all. I sensed discrimination in some people, but as a whole in the military, I didn't. I ended up getting out. I got out of the military, believe it or not, because I had a personal experience with Jesus. I had 10 years in, I only had 10 years left to go, and I would retire. I couldn't do it because I already had too much fight against me about keeping the fourth commandment. You know, the one that says, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy? 6 days shall you labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is Sabbath of Yahweh thy Elohim, you say the Lord thy God. So I read it, and way back then, 24 years old, I started keeping the Sabbath. I started keeping the Sabbath after growing up in different flavors of Baptists and churches of Christ. And then I realized the spiritual opposition that I had to actually come up against and run up against, especially as an adult. Now, then I also found out the words of what Jesus said would come true, that you would have people in your life that, especially your family, they will be your own foes, and you will be hated of all men of my name's sake. You can read about all this in Matthew the 10th chapter if you choose to. So after studying and really, truly, coming to find out that there's a lot of things that I grew up to believe to be truth, I found out it wasn't true at all. So I started studying about the history of my people. It's obvious I have a hue. And when I started studying, I didn't like it. But prior to me studying about the history of my people, there was a movie series that came out in the 70s when I was in junior high school. And that movie series was Roots. Now, that started my awakening right there. That did. And I still, till this day, I judge people on the merit of the person who they are. And not judge them by the content of their character. And I don't judge them by their skin, because I live in the South, and I have seen different diversities of opinion and the true hearts of people. The ones who are racist and the ones who are not racist. I remember telling my dad, after I left this one place, I'm going to skip back for a second, that I had somebody draw a gun, a shotgun on me. My dad, he went and got his gun. He didn't ask no questions. He said, you point the direction where this blank, 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 blank at. And we went all the way over to another county. It's called Lakewood, Tennessee. That's where we went. We went to Lakewood, Tennessee. My dad stood at the edge of that walkway with his gun cocked. Joe did, and he told him, he said, you bring your ass out here. And that guy sit there and he hollered from the other side of the house, of the door with the window open and stuff. And Dad Dow said, come out here and draw a gun on me. That's my father. You come draw a gun on me because I will kill your ass. Matter of fact, and he said a bunch of stuff. I mean, it wasn't good stuff. Next thing you know, we're surrounded by police. We're surrounded by a whole bunch of police. And of course, you know, they want to draw us down and stuff like this. Ironically, they didn't pin us to the ground or anything like that. When we told them what had happened, they actually went in and got the guy. Because Dad Dow, you know, if that man would have came outside, Dad Dow would have shot and killed him. Because he don't take it too kindly. You're going to threaten, I'm his oldest son. You're going to threaten his oldest son's life. And that's the difference, the reason why you need to have parents who are, especially, and now mind you, at the time, Dad Dow used to be a police officer in the Metro Force down here in Nashville, Tennessee. He wasn't a police officer then. But I can tell you one thing, he didn't give a crap about what else was going on in life. You drew a gun on my son, you come out here and do that same damn thing to me and I'm going to kill you. Now, I call that justice. That's what I call. But I promise you, ain't nobody gonna draw no gun on like me, on me like that today. It ain't happening. It may happen, but it won't last. It will not last because I won't be talking. I won't be asking questions and stuff. All the talking I'm gonna do is when they write the report. That's right. So I had to come to a lot of painful reality. So I moved. Let me go back to where I was. I got in the military because you know that they didn't like me keeping the Sabbath because I wasn't gonna break it. And I didn't. I didn't get out of the military because, you know, I become a conscientious objector because I didn't. Because I read the Bible, I knew what it said. I seen Israel go to war and they fought. And I didn't have no problem with that. Then come to find out the painful reality of the truth about history in this country and the religious discrimination and stuff. And so I started reading about Selma. I started reading about slavery. And the first thing to come to my mind was, where was all of this? Why wasn't this taught in our school curriculum? It just don't make sense. And I learned a lot of painful realities with most of you, which most of you are very comfortable at ignoring and throwing on the back burner. And so that's when I started coming up with a statement a long time ago. It's amazing how in this country that they want us to remember the Holocaust, but forget slavery. And I don't know what this is. Maybe you can tell me. I don't know what the guilt is in the conscience of a lot of Caucasian people, a lot of white people, that anytime you talk about slavery, either number one, they get offended, or number two, they get mad as hell, or number three, they totally ignore it, act as if nothing ever happened, and they walk away and they don't even want to hear it, don't want to be educated. Oh, we just need to forget that and move on. But as soon as you start talking about what the world is doing or what the Jews are suffering over here in this country or in the world, we're all about Israel. We're all about Israel. Then I come to find out who Israel was according to what the Bible says. I found out it really truly ain't all about Israel, and Israel is not all about them either. And I started going, what in the world? I found out that we were bought over here in slave ships, in chains and shackles, against our will. And I'm like, wow. I found out we were promised in this country right here, the United States of America, we were promised 40 acres and a mule. We never did get it. I also know the history of how this country has done the veterans after they went to war with them. And I see the reason why a lot of politicians and news sources today want to court the veterans. And they always want to come up with these statements. Thank you for your service to our country. And the truth is, they don't care about you serving this country. As long as you are doing it and they ain't doing it, they're thankful. So I started to understand economy. I started to understand The gap, the economic gap, the religious gap. I started to understand the poverty. I started to understand those who own businesses. I started to understand a lot at a very young age, and I had to learn all this on my own. I had to wade through a lot. If you come in my house, Pastor Dow has at least 10 to 12 nice sized large bookshelves with books on them that has history from all over the world, not just the United States, because I've been to quite a few places outside of the United States of America and lived outside the country for quite a while as well. So I have some experience. So what I know about America and what you know about America is two different things. I know the truth because I'm all about the truth. I don't care what that truth is. And I'm a person that believes that wrong is wrong. I don't care who it is and what color you may be. When you're wrong, you're wrong. After moving out here, I found out and I saw that we was less than welcome when we moved up here in this area. And I found out again because at the time when I moved my family here, we were the only blacks in the whole entire county. And they wasn't smiling at us. Nobody was happy to see us. I would say that, there's always in every place, no matter where you go, there are always a couple of people who you can genuinely discern and tell that they are happy for you and they love you. So I become a land owner. See, that's real wealth, is owning land. Because if you don't own land, and mind you, I own land a little bit different than you people do. When I own land, everyone that's come part of this community, it's their land as well. And I'm making moves to make sure it's that way. But I become a land owner. And most black people in this country, when you look at the differences in wage earnings and you look at the differences in economics and stuff, most of them, they don't own land. They will rent a home from somebody or rent an apartment all of their lives and never even consider the thought of owning a home. And if they do, they'll go own a home and want to be lied to, hoodwinked, and bamboozled by the mortgage companies, paying 3 to 4 times amount on a home than what it's worth. So I learned how to build. I built my own church building. That's what you're calling familiar with. We call it tabernacle. I built our own dining hall. I built quite a few houses. And utterly remarkable and amazing what will happen over a period of years and stuff. And so I don't have a mortgage. Because the home that I built, I paid for it as I went. And guess what? It's paid for. Bought and paid for. If I bought the material, if I had the money, I would buy the material, then I would add to it and build. If I didn't, I just didn't. I lived in a trailer on my own land right here. My family and I, even when my children was young, made great sacrifices. I lived on this land 9 years with no running water. We had outhouses. I had a shower house that I had already built. We would use the shower houses to go take baths and stuff like that. And my wife, I can even remember Sister Carol grabbing a 5-gallon Pella bucket of water coming from the creek. And at the time, I put a makeshift bathtub in there. I would take the gray water, and then I would pour it down the septic system. But she would that's how she would take a bath each night, with a 5-gallon pail of water. And we'd go to the shower house and stuff like that. Anyway, one of my children decided to go to college. They went to a college up here in Kentucky and graduated. Came home one time, and they told me that a history teacher, a black history teacher, was talking about slavery, and this college fired the history teacher because the teacher did not, she went off curriculum. She didn't teach the curriculum that the college had approved of, and she detoured a little bit and gave a little bit more history about this country and slavery, and they fired this professor. Unbelievable. So a lot of you out there, your experience is totally different than my experience. I thought about it one time building a store up here. And I started building it. Then and then I decided, I'll just turn it into a nice little guest house. Because the truth is, the way that these people are up here, if I build a store, that store will not in any way, shape, fashion, or form, it will not be a benefit to any of us at all. It just simply won't. It will not prosper because nobody's going to come out here. They'll drive to where the Amish and Mennonites are, and they'll go all over the place and go see them who are getting products from the system. But if we produce products and everything, they're not coming out here. You may have one or two people that will come here. This type of area I live in this type of area that the people, they know that we do a lot in deliverance and healing and stuff like that, believe in Jesus for deliverance and healing. They'll come here secretly, under the color of day or night. They don't want nobody to know that they've been here. And they'll receive prayer, healing, attend church because they're intrigued or whatever it is. And then after you don't see them no more. And if you see them in town, they totally ignore you, like as if you ain't never known them, seen them, or heard them, or whatever. It's just utterly amazing, the hypocrisy that goes on. And mind you, the community that I live on out here, there's a mixed multitude. There's a mixed multitude of different ethnicities in this community right here. Whites, blacks, Indians, Puerto Ricans, Mexicans, out here on this community. On this community right here. We dress differently. We carry ourselves in a manner because we keep the laws, believe it or not. We actually keep the laws of the land as long as they don't conflict with the laws of our God. So I started learning all this stuff. And then I'm like, man, my reality started to slowly change about this country called America. What the flag stands for you, it doesn't mean the same for me. And mind you, I'm one that's actually fought under that flag, served under that flag. Are y'all listening to me? And anytime I get to this point, that's where many of you start tuning out because you don't want to hear it. I came across a guy on the internet by the name of Tim Weiss. Ironically, he's a white man from Nashville as well. And this man actually spoke more to the plight of what's going on. Tim Weiss, punch it in on the internet. Tim Weiss, W-I-S-E. He talks about racism, discrimination, and white privilege more than anybody. He's a white man, but he gets a platform that I will never get. And he tells you because of the color of his skin. Because nobody wants to hear what I have to say, especially if I'm not, if I'm ignoring issues. And I'm not telling the truth because truth is unpopular in a lying land. Truth is unpopular when you live on soil that's stolen rather than taken by occupation. So we live on stolen ground. And you don't want to hear that. And that's when people start getting pissed off. So I learned about the Confederate flag. I learned the truth about it. I learned the truth about the Statue of Liberty. I learned the truth about Thanksgiving. I learned the truth about Christmas. I learned the truth about Christopher Columbus. I learned the truth about Easter. In other words, everything that they told us was truth in this country and that we've grown up in religious or tradition to know to be true. I can't find one thing that they have ever told us the truth about. And even still to this day, I still can't find one thing. So I'm very critical. Not all the presidents, and most of you don't know the truth, but I speak truth when there's truth in lies, and I tell a lie when it's a lie. And so what we got going on now in this country is utterly amazing. Because you remember Colin Kaepernick, he played quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. He didn't even play a whole season. But when he did last year get an opportunity to play, because I think they had Blaine Gabbert up there. When he did get an opportunity to play, it's obvious that when you look at his history and his record as a quarterback, he's an NFL quarterback pretty good. But Colin Kaepernick started seeing all the shootings that was going on in his country because the internet started letting us see all these shootings. And he started watching blacks die heinous deaths on these streets and nothing being done about it. Well, now it starts a racial disparity because you got people on both sides of the fence. And of course, anytime we start talking about, for instance, if I start talking about slavery, what happens to you when I start talking about slavery? Can you agree with if you're a man or woman of truth, can you agree with the truth of it or the injustice of it? I mean, it's amazing. Can you? Or are you offended about it? I mean, after all, my people were one that was hung from trees. My people are the one who had their families ripped from them. My people was one that had some of the framers of this Constitution right here. Some of the owners of these lands, Thomas Jefferson, them. They had a lot of sex with a lot of my people, ripping families apart. They sold us like cattle on the market, traded us like cattle, because before they ratified this, they said that my people were 3/5 human. So since in their eyes we were 3/5 human, we were no different than these cows that I have out here. And so it was no big deal for them to rape the women, to go in and have as many mulattoes, to separate the families and rip them apart, tear them apart, send a husband over here and sell him at the slave auction over here, send a wife over here, sell him at the slave auction. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And Thomas Jefferson and George Washington, who talked about so much about freedom and liberty. When you read this Constitution and you do an investigation of his life, you'll find out that his life was not consistent with what he wrote and believed. He had over 300 slaves on his plantation. All right. I don't know what's going on with my camera system. Look, okay. He had over 300 slaves on his plantation. So a lot of times these framers were writing things that sounded good. But when it says we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men were created equal and they were endowed by their creator by certain inalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Hey, that did not apply to my people who were shackled and in slavery. It was against the law for us to read. It was against the law for us to write. And it was damn so against the law for us to actually marry one of another culture or a white person. They couldn't stop it, so then they started passing, allowing people to get married, and then they come up with miscegenation laws and stuff. It's kind of crazy, but so I looked at this, I go, man, this is remarkable. And then most people, believe it or not, whites in this country, they don't even know the true history until they start to investigate, looking into it, and then they become just as disgusted as I do. So the flag in the United States of America is a symbol of racism to those of us who have never had a fair shake in this country, no matter what. So Colin Kaepernick, all right, he's a free agent, and nobody's picking him up in the NFL right now. You know why? Because they call him divisive and divisive. Now, wait a minute. I thought he was supposed to be judging him based on his play on the football field, because the few games that he played last year, I think he threw like 16 touchdowns to 4 interceptions, had a quarterback rating of 90, which ain't bad at all when you didn't even play half the year. So the man can play football. But because he had the chutzpah to stand up against all the racial discrimination and the murdering and killing of innocent civilians on the street, now he's discriminated against. Not only that, his jersey was one of the top best-selling jerseys in the NFL last year. That's a lot of money. So now teams don't want to pick him up, because the other day I heard President Donald Trump make this comment, which at the time he didn't call his name. And of course, he has his love affair for the flag. And believe me, I have just as much, and my people have just as much of a stake here in this country as anybody else does. But then I sat and watched the president. He didn't support or defend Colin Kaepernick's right to protest. I understand that he's a president and he's supposed to be of the people, for the people, and by the people. I understand all that. I understand that he's very patriotic and stuff, but it's also supposed to be no discrimination in this country, and the people have a right to protest. He has a right to disagree, let me say that, or he can agree. And then I come to find out the history of Francis Scott Key, who actually wrote the Star-Spangled Banner, and how racist he was. And it's like the rabbit hole, you see, gets deeper and deeper. And so then when someone like me stands up and starts talking to you, speaking truth, and telling you the real truth, that's when either you find out you're a liar, or you're a truthful man or woman, or you're a hypocrite. That's when you start sticking your head in the sand or in the ground. Because if you listen to me, you know I'm pretty fair. Unlike Bill O'Reilly, I'm a whole lot more fair and biased when it comes to reporting. Even at the tune of, I have my own people that's got this on you. They attack me for being fair and balanced. And I will say it again, wrong is wrong is wrong. I don't care what that color is. It's wrong. And so I thought it was very tasteless of the president to be at a rally up there in Louisville, Kentucky, and to make those remarks without calling his name. And everybody knew who he was talking about. Now you got politics in the NFL where people would rather go and sign somebody. Who was this guy that the Jets or somebody signed? 37 years old, and gave him $6 million on a 1-year contract or a 2-year contract. And then this guy who's a whole lot better of a quarterback than he ever has, and a whole lot younger, faster, a whole lot better quarterback, just because he expressed and he protests. And he did it peacefully and quietly. You may not like it, but if you join the military, you actually join the military to support Colin Kaepernick's right to protest. If you swore an oath to the Constitution and you were in any government level job to where you had to swear on that Bible, you swore an oath to defend that man's right to be able to peacefully protest. He hadn't went out here and shot nobody. See, it's okay if you do it behind the scenes, but when it starts becoming up in front of your face, when you have to look at the reality of it, it's painful, and most people would rather not deal with that. That's just the truth. And so up here, I've never been able to intelligently carry on a lengthy conversation with anybody up here. When they start talking religion, first thing I do, I mostly just sit back and listen to them. Because I know that they all watch our YouTube channel. I know that they all go to our website. I can tell who watches stuff. And they already know what we believe. But you know what? Truth is, they love their tradition and lies. They don't care nothing about what we believe. They don't care about truth. All they care about is the God of America, which is money. This is what they care about. Money. That's their God. And I realize this. I treat all men fairly. I treat them how I would want to be treated. But I can still say till today it's not the same. Not when you walk, as an old saying go, got some brand new one over it now. When you walk a mile in these shoes and these boots right here, the experience is totally different. Most of you would never know what it means to have your family ripped from you, torn apart, to be sold on a slave auction or have chains around your neck. Then immediately they will come, no, well, you don't know what it means to have chains around your neck, but no. Is anybody familiar with psychology? Anybody at all? You know, there are things that are, even in the religious realm, they call generational curses. There are certain things psychologically that pass down from generation to generation to generation that you begin to feel. It's like, for instance, when you go to the doctor, first thing they do is they check to see if you are diabetic. All of a sudden, it just came up on you. They go and look and see if your family had a history of diabetes. It's amazing how that history of diabetes can actually fall down to one generation and stuff. But you know what? It's amazing that when we grow up certain ways, that we can't own the same perspective and attitude, especially when it comes to someone having a racist perspective or point of view. But I feel, and I had to fight and resist against a lot of things. I used to question myself, what is this feeling? Why am I feeling like this? What is that? And what I had to do was educate myself and learn what truth is rather than being controlled by a bunch of emotions and feelings. So there's a lot of psychological warfare that is going on and stuff that has been passed down, whether we like it, understand it or not. I understand the anger in this country. The one thing I can't understand is this. My people got bought over here on a slave ship against their own will. And then we was told that and I even heard about the lies of Abraham Lincoln too. Abraham Lincoln didn't go to war to free the slaves. That was another painful reality. I've lost my train of thought. But anyway, I know y'all know what I'm saying. Anyway, I sit up here and I look and I weigh things very carefully, because I can tell you right now, everything I've gotten or ever gotten in this world, right, I worked pretty hard for it. And I am in the process of trying to leave something back for those who are in the faith, the same faith of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob that we are. Because besides my wife, my mother and father, everybody else, my whole entire family has done forsaken me. Every one of them. Does it hurt? No, it don't bother me at all. It's more troubling about, I know their soul condition. That's what's troubling more than anything. But Pastor Dow's not going to ignore any truth simply because it's not politically correct and it's uncomfortable. I see the reason why a lot of people say Donald Trump is a racist. I think that he has racism in him. I think he has privilege in him, and he speaks certain ways and do certain things because of his position where he's at. And I see it. I see it both ways. I see an equal balance in him. People would call me, they call me racist. And if they saw my lifestyle, they saw the people that actually listen to me in church, then they have to eat crow, as the old country saying go. But, I think there's something seriously wrong when we can't have a healthy dialogue and speak truth. It's the truth. And anytime the subject of racism come up, that's why I talk about the transatlantic slave trade all the time. Number one, because it pisses people off. Number two, it lets them know the hypocrite they are. And number three, it lets them know that they really truly don't want to have a discussion concerning what truth is in this country. So I hate the politics that's going on in the NFL against Colin Kaepernick right now. I think it's a damn shame. I really truly do. But it ain't nothing I haven't experienced myself and still experience. That's why I'm not depending on no handouts from anybody. But those who are born again, those who are intelligent, those who are individuals who can read that Bible and comprehend and understand it for what it says, those are my brothers and sisters, and they get it. They really truly get it. I think I want to end this video by saying, why is it so uncomfortable for us to actually speak the truth? Why is it?